In this video, you're going to learn how to call methods and the different places, how to call them in different places and at different times. So I created this very generic person class, and they have different things that you might not expect in a person, but whatever, I can do whatever I want with a class, right? So say you have a game and you have to know where this person is. And so one of the things that you have in your person class is distance away. So maybe it's distance away from the home base or something. And then you need to know where they are. So, distance away could be anywhere in a circle. So the place needs to be known. So you create this person. So I could left a default one here reminding you that this would make distance be 0 and it would make place be null, because that's what the default values are. So I have a generic default constructor just in case. Then I have a 2-parameter constructor that assigns both of them at the same time. Couple setters sets 2 void methods here. So this is what we're starting to look at. Methods here are the behavior that you allow for your objects to have. So we're allowed to set the place where they are and set the distance away that they are from you or from home base or whatever. So this is a void method. All it does, a void method does not return any value to the method call. And that just means I send it something like word, or I send it a parameter, or I don't send it anything. I run it and it does something. It does something for me, but it doesn't return any information back to me. So that's what void methods are. So this is what we're going to be using right now. We're learning how to call void methods. So the first place that we could call them is actually in this class here. So when you're in this class, anything is up for grabs. It doesn't matter the order you put things in, as long as they exist. So let's say you have the ability to teleport and you want this person to be able to just teleport and reach one place and set the place and the distance away at the same time. So we want to set distance and place. So it's basically similar to what the constructor did, but you don't want to actually create a new constructor at the time. So we're going to do the num and a word, whatever. I made these things up. Okay, so what this allows me to do, now I could just do what I did here and set place equal to word and distance away equal to num, but what fun would that be? So what we could also do is call these methods. So instead of actually setting the value equal like we're doing here, I can call this method. And in order to call a method, all I need is I need the name of the method. So I need to call it. It's like me calling your name. So I'm calling it, and I'm going to send it a value. So maybe this is a little confusing. Let me change these values to value and store. I don't know, I'm making something up. Okay, so the place, I'm going to set the place to store. Now what it sends is it actually sends the value that I have here, throws it to here, throws it up to here, and this word sends it and stores it into place. So I can actually call the method. That's all that needs to happen. When I am in the same class as my method is in, I can literally just set dist away and value. I can just call it. Now, when we do this somewhere else, so when and this is completely wonderful. So it's calling different methods in the same class. So now if I'm outside the class, so say I'm in a client class, like this one, person tester, I can't just do that because I'm not in the same class. If I try to call set I really forget what I called it, and just give it a value. So I think the distance, let's just say 72, and target which is interesting because it's a target. And anyway, it would get very confused. Okay, so it cannot find symbol. Like it says this doesn't exist. So it's saying I have an int and a string. It has the name of it and everything. Just making, oop, I just closed that. Just making sure that I set dist and place. It's the correct name. The problem is you need to tell it what class it's in. Sorry, I need to just make sure I wrote the right thing. I don't want that to be the problem. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to tell it what object. So I'm just saying set distance in place. It's not saying what to set the distance in place of. So when you're outside of the class, it doesn't know what distance in place you're talking about, what person you have. So what you do is you have to create an object. So when you're calling, I put this in all in the notes, but when you're calling an object, or when you're calling a method outside of a class, you have to have an object to work on. So we'll just say it's me. So we all do this. So I'm just going to create a generic one so that I can't. Okay, so I'm going to create a, what's this called? An object, but I'm going to use the default parameter. So I have an object. So now, right now, this one has a null place, and it has nothing or 0. So it's at home base kind of thing. So what I need to do is give it that object to work on. And this guy right here is called the implicit parameter. It's the parameter that comes before the dot, and it allows me to tell it what distance in place. So if I have more than one, so if I have another person, up here, let's do it this way. And I did set dist in place, it now knows that it's going to pick me over you. That's right, it is. So this means that me and you, these two separate objects, have the same access to all of the methods and instance variables here separately. So they each have their own distance away in place, and they all have their own ability to behave. So they can do these behaviors. They can set the place, set the distance away, set the distance and place together. And then we using these void methods. Now we have methods that are not void. They have a different word here. They have int, or they have string. And these two here are called the same way, but the value that they return has to be used in some way for this to be at all useful. So basically what I mean is, if I had a method, let's say I'm going to create a toString, and I want to call this method, these methods, distance away and get place, in this other method. So again, these are non-void methods that we're calling, and we are going to be calling them in the same class. So I'm in this class right now where get distance away and get place exist. What I'm going to do is create another method and just call them. Now this is done the exact same way, but the difference here is I have to do something with it. So here I'm going to, and you don't have to worry about what's actually happening here. What you have to worry about is actually calling it. So I'm just creating a method that is going to return all this whole big string to this method. So I'm going to, what is the distance? Well, I could just use distance away, this variable, or this instance variable, but instead I can call the method. And oftentimes we do this because it's a little bit clearer. Sometimes the method name is a little bit clearer, and it just is. Okay, so that's just how we call it. So it's the same basic idea. So place, I'm trying to talk and type and it's just not working. Okay. So the difference between, so instead of doing place, I can write get place. So it's actually running that method here, and it's just getting this. So the problem with a method that isn't a void, if you can see the difference here, notice these I call two void methods here. I called distance away and set distance away and set place. Notice they're just all by themselves in a line. I just call it, it runs, and it's over. The difference between that and a return method is this guy has a value it's returning, and this is the type of value it's returning. So int is being returned, an int is being returned, so that means that this value in this call right here is an integer. So it's sending it this value to there. So I need to do something with it. In this case, I'm doing a return statement. You've never really seen those before, but think of it like a system out almost. You can use it as a system out or create a variable to hold it. Okay, so maybe it'd be a little easier to see in this client program. So in this client program, I would run the method exactly the same way, with me as the object and getPlace as the method. Now the difference is getPlace has a return statement. So all it does is well, not all it does, but the last thing that it does is it sends the value get of place, in this case, back to this method call. So it's like playing catch. You throw it to one person and they throw it back to you, or they throw you something back. In this case, they would send us back target because that's the value that's being stored in place. Now, if I try and run this guy, and I'm running it over here, nothing happens. Well, it did call it, it did run, it created these two objects, all this stuff happened, but we don't know. So in order to be able to use this value, you need to be able to use it in some way. So a system.out.print is one way. So this is one way I can see this actually happen. So if I compile this and I run it now, I can see that the value was returned. There's target. Okay, and then you can do the exact same thing with, say, get distance away, it was called. And that would do the same thing. So maybe I should use a println so they're on different lines, whatever. There we go. There's target on one line, 72 on the other. That's it. You have to use the value. The other way you could use the value is you could store it in a variable. So let's me stuff, whatever. I'm batting 1,000 here. So so say I want to take me and I want to get all that information, that distance, that I want to use that toString method here that I created. So I'm going to send it this whole string. It's fantastic, right? You can do anything you want in a string. So me dot toString. It's going to call and it's going to send it back into here. Okay, so that will run. But so then later I can use me stuff. So I can use that value anywhere I want. So if later I want to output it, right now we're not doing anything too complicated, so system outs are pretty much it. Dot. So if I want to call me stuff, it's going to call that and give me the values that are stored in it. So I can use it in a calculation, I can use it in a any sort of other methods that I might have. I'm going to just run it when it's prettier. Okay, so I should have probably put a space here in my toString, but here I ran this, it ran getPlace, get distance away, and then it stored this value in this variable, and then I output it so I could just see it. So return statements are called the same way. When you're outside the client class, you need an object. However, you need to do something with it. So right now, either put it in a system out or put it in a variable to be used later. Okay, I hope this helps. Read the notes and have a nice day.